Hi, my name is Rebecca Hu, and I am applying to Hope Chinese Charter School as an English teacher. I was born in Geneva, New York, and grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. I attended college in Grove City, Pennsylvania, and earned my teaching credential there. I moved back to Hawaii in 2012 upon graduation and began teaching third grade for about 5 years. The school I worked at was in the process of becoming an international baccalaureate school. After I got married, I moved to Northern California where I began working at a Chinese immersion school as the English teacher. I had 2 homerooms and would teach language arts, math, and science to each class. They would go to the Chinese teacher and learn Chinese and social studies for half the day. Upon moving to Los Angeles, I began to substitute teach in several districts in Los Angeles County and Orange County. We are considering moving to Portland and are exploring job opportunities. Although I believe there are numerous facets to a child's education, there are 2 fundamental outcomes to which I strive. First, I believe that I must prepare each one of my students to be lifelong learners. It is essential to teach students how to learn by instructing them to use reasoning and higher level thinking skills that can be later applied to any subject of study or aspect of life. Furthermore, it is important to motivate students to become lifelong learners by explaining the relevancy of what is being studied and modeling enthusiasm for learning. Secondly, I believe that every child can and will learn. For this reason, I encourage each student to reach his full potential and challenge students so they can experience growth and success. Although classroom learning is essential, I also believe that true learning extends far beyond the classroom to include training of the whole person. I recognize and value each student's individual needs and talents and firmly believe each child should be valued simply for being who they are and not just being good, how they act. Regardless of age level or content, it is my conviction and desire that I should love and care enough about each one of my students that I give my all to ultimately guide my students to become individuals who, when they leave me, are self-directed in their learning, self-motivated in becoming lifelong learners, and self-confident in their unique abilities and talents. I grew up living in Honolulu, Hawaii, so I was constantly around a melting pot of various cultures. My family spoke Chinese at home, and throughout my schooling, we had Hawaiian, Japanese, French, Spanish, and Chinese classes. I attended a Chinese language and culture class on the weekends. When I began teaching, my students were also very diverse. We had Chinese, Spanish, and Hawaiian classes held at my school as well. We celebrated many cultural holidays as a school, such as Chinese New Year and May Day, which is Lei Day. The 4th grade students would go on a yearly trip to the island of Hawaii to learn more about Hawaiian history and culture. Although I taught 3rd grade, I chaperoned the trip twice. I worked at a Chinese immersion school in Cupertino, California. I worked with my team to teach the English portion of the day while another teacher taught the students Chinese reading and writing and taught history content in Chinese. We had several performances for Chinese New Year, and I brought our May Day culture to our school and introduced it to the students and parents in a form of a performance put on by several grade levels. I substitute taught in a special education middle school classroom where the classroom teacher had already been out for a few months. The students were having to adjust to multiple substitute teachers who had picked up the job for either days or weeks or a month at a time. The classroom teacher did not leave any substitute plans or information on the students' academics or behavior. Class behavior was extremely challenging. Students would push to see how much they could get away with and try to create their own accommodation that they wanted to be implemented. Many of the students needed to be separated and needed constant redirection or positive reinforcement. I spoke with teachers who were teaching the general education classes so that we could collaborate on academic content. I put together lessons and accommodated the lessons to match each student based on my observations on what I saw as I taught. As a routine settled in the classroom, students began to see that I was aware of their strengths and weaknesses and that I was actively accommodating lessons to assist them in each of their understanding and ability to show understanding. A few were quite independent and preferred to work quietly on their own and participate when called on. A few preferred to write their answers by using the speech-to-text option on their laptops due to their low writing ability but high content understanding. I created assessments so that the school would know how the students were doing while their classroom teacher was out. I also put together a binder for any future substitutes in the classroom with lessons, behavior management, tips for creating lessons, etc. I have taught using various curriculum materials over the past few years. I have been trained to use units of study, Writers and Readers Workshop, McGraw-Hill Wonders Language Arts, Origo Stepping Stones, Go Math, and Eureka Math. A good lesson allows students to make a connection to the real world. It gives students the opportunity to practice the strategy and shows them how it ties in with previously learned content. In the past, my team and I have addressed a wide range of skills and abilities in our classrooms by trying out a number of strategies to identify student learning. We have created or examined rubrics that were standard aligned and analyzed writing pieces, projects, or assignments and compared them to grade level examples. This allowed us to see if there were any standards that were not being grasped well, to see if any students were falling behind, to see if any students were excelling, and to examine what we could do to strengthen and challenge our students across the grade level. We would score them and post the scores in a spreadsheet that included student scores for the entire school. This allowed us to see the other grade levels. Keeping each other in the loop about our observations in class, our one-on-one support, small group support, and meeting often shared progress allowed us to see how to challenge and support our students. I would use Class Dojo to update parents and student behavior and implement our school PBIS method by awarding students bulldog bones for positive behavior. Our mascot was a bulldog. Students could redeem prizes every week at our PBIS shop. At our school-wide monthly morning meeting that parents and children attended, we would draw a name from a grade level container with the bones that the students earned to award a class with a stuffed bulldog that they could proudly display. If one of my students needed to learn to appropriately socialize with others, I would address this issue in a variety of ways depending on the particular situation. I would go out during recess or lunch recess to observe the student in an unstructured setting and observe the student throughout the class day to see how he or she interacts with peers. I would privately pull the student aside and talk to the student to see if there's anything going on that might be affecting his or her behavior. If there were any disputes or miscommunication between friends or classmates in the past, I would give a lot of insight regarding classroom behavior. We would discuss the matter with his peers and would try to resolve the issue. In the past, I've had students select 2 or 3 peers they wanted to get to know better or resolve issues with, and we would eat lunch and play a few games in the classroom. During lunch, we would talk and share compliments with each other. It allowed the student a safe and positive space to have a conversation with his or her peers. I would create an action plan together with the student to encourage positive behavior. It might look like a student contract, a progress chart that the student, parents, and I can see to track the behavior. This topic earlier, but I grew up living in Honolulu, Hawaii, so I was constantly around a melting pot of various cultures. My family spoke Chinese at home, and we often went to China, Taiwan, or Hong Kong during the summer to visit family and friends. I attended a Chinese language and culture class on the weekends. I taught and created a basic English camp curriculum for students of all ages at 4 different English camps in Taiwan and China in 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2014. I also created a basic Chinese curriculum and taught at Hongwanji Mission School in Honolulu, Hawaii during my college summer breaks. I really enjoyed working at a Chinese immersion school during my time in Cupertino, California. I worked with my team to teach the English portion of the day, while another teacher taught the students Chinese reading and writing and taught history content in Chinese. We celebrated the Chinese New Year by playing relay games, relay races, poems, guessing riddles, and answering trivia questions. I found that the parents had an easier time communicating with me when they were able to speak Chinese to me, and I responded in English. It allowed them to feel more comfortable and they felt more open to asking for help or suggestions for their child. Collaboration is sharing, listening, and implementing suggestions and feedback that all parties have voiced. When students are working independently, I've conferred with students as a small group or individually to talk about what they may be struggling with or how to challenge them more. We have gone over strategies or worked on ways to extend the lesson. We have made charts to track progress and write down goals that they have for themselves. In the past, my team and I have addressed a wide range of skills and abilities in our classroom by trying out a number of strategies to identify student learning. We've created or examined rubrics that were standard aligned and analyzed writing pieces, projects, or assignments and compared them to grade level examples. In the Chinese immersion program, we also collaborated between our grade level team to see what our expectations were across languages and if there are any similarities or differences in their academic performance in English and Chinese. Keeping each other in the loop about our observations in class, our one-on-one support, small group support, and meeting often and sharing progress allowed us to see how to challenge and support our students. I have a classroom website that students and parents will have access to. They can see what is happening in the classroom and have access to links we use often and check what the homework is. Students can access rubrics, documents, assignments via Google Classroom, and videos that I've assigned for them to assist their learning. Students will have access to lessons, practice questions, writing and reading samples, and sites to help them practice reading comprehension and math problems. I find that documenting progress and charting has helped me to see what to target in the classroom. I found that creating and sharing interactive documents with the students has been useful for allowing students to manage their time and get a head start or know what has been missed. The documents would map out the class schedule for the day and include links to videos explaining concepts, news articles, rubrics, or worksheets. I like to hope because I really enjoyed the environment of working in an immersion school. I grew up surrounded by a variety of languages and cultures and see the importance of embracing and allowing them to enrich my life and those of my students. I think I would be a good fit because I'm very open-minded, friendly, and enjoy getting to know those around me. Students in my classroom, parents of my students, fellow coworkers, administration, staff, etc. I'm excited to see what I can partake in and share my knowledge, experience, and blend of cultures with the school community. I would like to get back into the classroom full-time so that I can focus on a group of students that I can encourage and see grow throughout the school year. I'm excited to implement the strategies, methods, and activities I have learned throughout my substitute teaching experience. My husband and I are applying to jobs in Oregon, and due to this interesting and challenging time, we have now taken on a whirlwind of virtual meetings and interviews. Thank you for taking the time to look through my questions and for watching the video. I look forward to hearing from you soon.